Hey Sunrise, it's Andrew here with your small group questions for this week as we dive into week 2 in our series on gospel culture. So the text that we'll be highlighting this week is coming from Romans chapter 15 verses 1 through 15. And in this text we're going to unpack what it means to bear with one another, ultimately with hope. And so as you work through the text, you're going to see some things that should strike you as encouraging, but as well as convicting. So the very first thing that we see in this text is called to bear with one another. So my question is simply, what does it mean to bear with one another as this text says? What does that look like? What are some very common ways that we can see this played out in the life of the church? And so as you continue on through the text, we then ask the question, how is the gospel displayed in these actions? What is Paul's admonition in our text, and how does that relate to the gospel itself that we are seeking to emulate, that we're seeking to live out? And so as he works through his argument, he also concludes with 3 Old Testament texts to further heighten what he's been saying about the glorifying God. Again, looking at the Jews and the Gentiles, glorifying God together. He highlights 3 Old Testament texts. What stands out in those texts? Adam's going to highlight one of those things in his sermon on Sunday, so be on the lookout for that. But again, just as you read these texts, what does it show us about God's purpose in the gospel and how it is to be lived out? And then as you think about this text as a whole, what are some of the things that stand out to you? How does this show that the gospel culture that we're talking about in this is more than just simply being nice to one another? That it's more than a niceness. How does this text further the fact that there is more to it than that? How is Christ revealed in this text? So again, specifically we see how Christ has welcomed us. We welcome one another. What does that look like? What are putting some feet onto that and walking that out a little bit? How do we welcome one another as Christ has welcomed us? How have you seen this done? How can we do it better? Just thinking through those realities. And so ultimately, how does this shape who we are as believers? How does it shape who we are as Sunrise? What are some of the ways we can better put these truths revealed in this text into practice to live out the faith well together? Hope that you spend some time in this text really diving into what Paul is calling us to do as God teaches us through this text, building us up into his church through the gospel. Can't wait to worship with you guys on Sunday and, of course, unpack these truths in our small groups. See you guys soon.